Awesome. Okay, so man, when I first came on Young Life College staff, I came into my first area and I had only had experience in Young Life High School. And I brought in the tools that I had to do club. And when I brought it in, I brought in the event and then I invited the people. And I noticed that my event and my people didn't match. And why it wasn't matching was I was trying to get my people to fit the event. And so what I have learned in my years of getting to do this is, wow, I actually need to study and be an expert in my people. And then I'm naturally going to know how to create a weekly gathering for them. And so the first thing I want to talk about is let's be a real quick reminder of who are our guests. So first of all, they're Gen Z. We're not going to get too much into this because we went into it a lot yesterday, but they're socially anxious, right? Like uh, they have they carry a lot of social anxiety with them. So they're coming into the event holding that. They're a large group adverse, right? There's a lot of reasons for this, but there's more and more students will say, are there going to be a lot of people there? I don't know if I want to be there, right? So we need to keep that in mind of, man, how do we, even if it's a large group, make it feel like pockets of being smaller? Like last night, we had a huge semi-formal, but we put a bunch of chairs into smaller groupings so people could sit with other people. The Gen Z is skeptical of someone on the stage, right? They have this skepticism towards leadership in general. And that doesn't mean we don't get on the stage and we don't give talks. That just means that affects our posture when we're up there, of knowing that that may be hard for them and we have to take some steps of bringing in comfort in that. All right, so this is the second thing about our guests. They are on the line between adolescent and young adult. Man, a freshman in college and a senior in college couldn't feel more different. I don't know if you'll feel that way when you are with them, but I see it all the time of, an adolescent was just in high school and a young adult is about to be an adult out in the world. And so they want to be treated with respect, right? They want to come in and feel like they're being treated like adults. Their ways of having fun have changed. They're not in high school anymore, right? They want to feel like they are an adult having fun in college. Making friends is top priority over entertainment and fun. When I talk to freshmen or anyone who's coming to our events at the beginning of the year, I ask them, what do you want from this? And they're like, everyone tells me I should get involved because that's where I'm going to meet my best friends in college, right? If we're looking at in opposition to a high school thing, a high school club, all of them are coming with students that they've known their maybe entire time, their entire life. They go to school with them, they know them well. When we are throwing an event for college students, we're at the beginning of the year, we're essentially throwing an event for strangers. And so we have to ask, man, are they even going to be able to engage with questions about the gospel or themselves or deeper things in life if they don't make friends first? If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? This is one of my favorite things to look at. We want them to get to self-actualization and know who they are, all these things, but we got to take some care of some of their basic needs first. And a basic need of a college student is they just need friends. So how do we create that with what we do? And then it's important we honor the full spectrum of college experience. So how do we take the freshman who just got here all the way to the senior who's about to go? And how do we honor all of them and what we're doing? Okay, next, they are in transition. Okay, well, I was with someone one time and they said this. I'm like, we could unpack this. I don't know if I fully agree with it, but they said to me, and it really made me think, I think college students are more socially similar to wildlife middle school students and high school students. And I was like, that's interesting. Expand on that. What do you mean? They're like, think about it. They're so socially vulnerable. They're not sure who they are. They're not top dog anymore. They've left their environment of comfort and they're so socially anxious, right? So they are really aware of what people think about them, especially freshmen in this first few events. So they are hesitant to feel embarrassed at an event, to get messy from a game, to put their arm around a stranger, to be forced out of their comfort zone. So some of these things we may have historically done because it's fun and we know that it breaks down walls with kids. But we need to ask, does that actually break down a wall with a college student? Or are we building walls with some of the things we do? Because they're really nervous and they might be really anxious. And so that, remember, that doesn't mean we don't do things. That means we say, hey, how do we be creative with this? And how do we create things that are really fun and actually build a relationship and don't embarrass people? They're coming from a wide range of spiritual backgrounds. At high school, you may just have, they're kind of, I'm like asking maybe even what they're thinking, but when you get into college, you have atheists, Christians, Muslims, agnostics. I had a girl come to my small group and say, yeah, I love witchcraft and I'm just here to hear what you have to say about Christians. And I was like, I'm so glad you're here. So we have a wide range, right? We have Muslims at our club, Mormons, all sorts of people who are coming, and we're really honest about who we are. But we need to know that when we speak, we're speaking of a way where we need to communicate the gospel, and we're fighting maybe some barriers that we didn't have before. So how do we prepare our messages to take into account this diverse range of spiritual backgrounds? All right. Okay. So club, how do we be innovators and not quitters? There's a wide spectrum on this that I've seen in my time in Young Life College. Number one is this doesn't seem to work. Traditional club does not seem to work with college students. Therefore, we're not doing it. And then we go all the way to we're going to force it. Oh, it's going to happen, right? And so the question is, how do we take both of those away and say, how do we be as creative as Jim Rayburn was at the very beginning, and we be innovators and we study our audience and we know who they are and we create something? So trying to run club every week in college is like trying to create something between a church and Saturday Night Live every 7 days on 1% of the budget and 10th of the talent, right? So we go to camp, whether that's fall weekend or not, and my students love club, but that is because it is at the highest level, right? So if we don't have the ability to do that at the highest level, how do we do this creatively, right? So traditional mindset would be host a weekly traditional Young Life Club, including singing, skits, mixers, and a talk. The new mindset we want to shift to is how do we host a set of intentionally designed gatherings meant to provide connection, fun, and gospel to college students? I don't know if y'all have ever heard Brian Summerall speak, but he's one of my favorite communicators of why we do everything we do behind the scenes of club, right? Why do we do a mixer? Why do we do that song? And so I would love if, as Young Life College staff, we could take the posture of, hey, we're going to take the elements that are so gold in club. And I'll tell you some of my favorites. I love that we earn the right to be heard in club. I love that we break down walls with students. I love that we have a funnel of energy where we take them from high energy to hearing the gospel. And so how do we keep these gold elements of club and turn them into things that students want to be involved in? So when we break down club, let's say like the traditional club we would see at camp, there's 3 things I actually think that are in club and 3 elements that if we stole those and said, hey, what if we took those? Because this seems like the magic ingredients. And we use those in creative ways. And so this is what we would say it is. It's a space for connection, right? There's some elements in club that connect people. It's a place for fun. Fun breaks down walls. And then the gospel is present. So we're going to look at what that could look like in an innovative way for Young Life College Club. And I want to say this, we are going to give you space to dream with this. So here we go. Connection. So we have to be intentional to create community with and among students. So we can often assume within large group gatherings that our students are just going to connect. We talked about this yesterday. But what if we made the assumption that they actually didn't have the ability to connect on their own, right? We have the socially anxious generation. So instead, how do we ensure a positive connecting experience for every student? So for instance, how do we design the arrival portion right before to maximize or create our community? Right before they go in, how are we creating space where students connect? For instance, our very first thing we do, I noticed for years that students were standing outside. We had way too many students for our leaders to meet really intentionally at the beginning. And so one year we handed out people bingo cards and they started talking to each other right before. And that was a perfect way to make them talk to each other. What kind of events could we host that would maximize this type of connection and community? So for an example is we do a trivia night and at the very beginning of the year, and they're put into small group teams and they're having to talk to those new people throughout the whole thing. And that's one of the very first events we do. And that's so that they can meet people at their table. And we put a young life leader at each table fostering those conversations. We're in a large group gathering, but we've made it smaller. How do we design post club to create community? Where do you go afterwards? How do you create that? Like, if we just had our event, it's very likely that students could walk in, walk out, and maybe completely get missed, especially at our larger schools. Do we provide food? Does everyone go somewhere? How do we linger? This is all about environment. Do leaders know this and know that this is part of it is creating environments for connection? So part of this is having a host mentality, right? So if we're considering hosting events for all people over the spiritual map, we're always going to be the pursuers, right? We consider ourselves professional inviters. So they're coming in, they immediately feel invited to the rest of Young Life throughout the week. We value belonging before believing. So people come in and immediately feel welcome. We strive to see the way God sees them and love people the way God loves them. So how do we create this environment where people immediately walk in and feel loved? And we can cultivate a rich and authentic relationships that lead to growth. So this is how we host events that create connection. Okay, next, fun. So this is one of the best things Young Life does is we know how to have fun. And it's Pete right there with the horn that he bought at the garage sale. He's thinking in that way. Oh, he's getting it right now. Yes, it's like constantly having your mind around, would this be fun? And it's so vital and important to our ministry. And so what we don't want to say is, oh, college students don't like to have fun because they want to be adults. No, we all love to laugh and have fun. The question is, how do they have fun? Right? If it's not the burger in the blender, drinking it in front of everyone, that's okay. There's other ways to have fun with college kids. So my question is, what do college students like to do for fun? Here's a crazy idea. You could ask them, right? What are they already doing? What do you see college students naturally drawn to? What do they not like to do? What do you see them pushing away from? And it's okay to make mistakes, guys. I've made a million mistakes with club and I'm still not doing this perfectly, but we'll do something and I'll be like, that was a total loss. I'm never doing that again in my life. How do we keep humor and fun in Young Life? We know that there is power in play. How do we think creatively about the ways college students can play together every time they come together, right? If Young Life is known for being fun, I would love if students were like, man, you should join Young Life. It's the most fun I've ever had in college, right? Christians should reclaim fun and laughter. And I want to be known for that on our campus. So here's some things of like, hey, what are some things you could do that you could put in your schedule, right? And an example is, what are your students already doing on your campus? What do you have that's an asset to your campus? So San Marcos, Texas State, where my school is, we have this gorgeous river and life is around the river. And so we do so many of our events there, but that won't work for you if you don't have a river in your town. So what do you have in your city that you could use? All right, gospel. So let's lean into what that looks like. When we do the gospel proclamation, these are important things to think about. How will the students be seated in chairs in a circle and rows at tables, thinking through how does the physical environment affect the spiritual conversation? Who are going to give the messages? Is it your staff, student staff, volunteer leaders, community leaders? in my school, we typically have staff at the beginning of the semester because that's where we're having our most volume and students are really paying attention to what's being said. But then as I get later in the semester into spring, I'm inviting some of the leaders I want to develop and training them how to do talks and giving them experience and reps up there. How do you decide what you want to talk about, right? We're going to get a little bit more into that. How do you designing a portion of your gathering for your students to process, right? So they're over-informed and under-processed as Gen Z. So do you meet afterwards and have discussion? Do you get leaders to follow up on questions with small groups? Do you have leaders just in contact work follow up on this? But how are we giving them spaces to process? Okay, so, and we'll come a little bit back to gospel in a second. All right, so how many gatherings should we have through the semester? As Young Life College, we want to stack hands that all ministries are having 12 gatherings a semester. In the fall, a minimum of 8 of those should have all 3 ingredients, right? So it has an element of connection, fun, and gospel. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a second. And then the spring, there should be a minimum of 6. So we talked about this yesterday. That's saying, hey, in the fall, we need 8 club talks. And in the spring, we need 6. And then the remaining of the gatherings each semester should have at least 2 of the 3 ingredients involved in it. So an example is worship night, which I want to explain that for a second. That may not be like the intense worship night that a church would hold. It's Young Life worship night. So if we're looking at serious seekers, skeptics, the idea is, how do we create events that are bridges for them to step towards the next thing, right? So if we have our seekers, and some of them have been like, I'm pretty nervous to go to church. I've never done worship before. What if we hosted a worship night that was really welcoming and created a really safe environment for the first time they ever heard and engaged in worship? And we had a worship night that felt very Young Life and accessible. And then they were like, wow, I can do this. And this actually is really fun and feels really sweet. And I want to be a part of this. So that would be an event that would be an example of just connection or just gospel. So 2 of the 3 elements. And then you could have something like a dance party. Like, this is our Halloween party we do each year. We pack out a garage, everyone's in costume, and then we have fun snacks and stuff where people are getting to meet. That is 2 elements of these 3 ingredients. It's connection and it's fun. And that's where our skeptics are going to come, right? And our seekers are going to feel really comfortable there. And hopefully our serious have a vision for why that's important as a part of the kingdom too, right? So we're creating environments where students can feel like they have a place to belong in each one of them. So here's some examples of some ideas for different size students you have. If you want to take a picture of this, you can. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But I think what I want to say on this is think really smart about what is our size and what does that size need and what would do well in it. So how do we design our schedule? So if we look at the year, we need to remember the rhythm of the year. So we're going to build on everything. So we're saying, okay, August. My purpose of August and September is we want a wide net. How do we bring everyone in? How do we communicate vision for the rest of the semester? So that means when I think of August and September, I need to build my events to achieve my goal for those months. Now in December, our goal is to celebrate. So you're going to see that event feel really differently. So we're going to look at how to create a schedule, but here are some questions you can ask. And I'm just going to go through these really quick. You can take a picture if you want, but these are questions to ask yourself. What's the culture of your school? Right? How does that influence what you are wanting to do there? What do your students enjoy doing for fun? Right? How does that affect we love sand volleyball at Texas State. We do sand volleyball once a semester. Who do you expect to attend each of your gatherings? Skeptic, seeker, serious. And when you look at a schedule, this is important. How are you saying, hey, I want to make sure that we have a variety of events where all 3 of those feel like there's something in there for them, or else we're going to lose one of those groups in the ecosystem. And one of the best things we can do on that, going back to Gen Z, is be really clear about what we're doing. So, hey, tonight we're just doing Halloween dance party, and then tonight we're just doing worship. so that they can choose what they feel comfortable going to. It's okay if they don't feel comfortable going to something. What are the needs of students at the different times of year? Where will you meet? What time of day? Natural resources? What do you call it? So a note on this. We will internally keep calling it club. That's great. If you would like to call it something else to communicate better for your school, there's freedom in that. And what I mean by that is at Texas State, we simply say, hey, come to Young Life, right? They go, what's club? Is it a club that I join? We just say, hey, come to Young Life, right? So we'll always call it club internally, but yeah, what you can call it, you know, whatever you want with that. I think Young Life is really clear. So what next step? How does this be a bridge for the next step for students? And how will you evaluate your gatherings, right? How do we know if that was a success or not? Maybe that's meeting with a team afterwards and saying, hey, was that good? Like having trusted college students who can speak into that. All right, here's just a quick example of what some months could look like to match it. So we have kickoff week events, right? That are, you know, just the ingredients are fun and connection so people can get connected. And then that first meeting is, hey, here's a vision for the year, right? You're sitting there, there's maybe student stories, a cool video, there's, they get to sign up for everything that night. You get to sell trips. You could even talk about spring break. Like you get a full vision for the year. There's something fun in there that students are getting to do with each other. We do we don't call it speed dating, but they get to meet people. I've had people say, I met my roommate in that very first club because we took time to make everyone in the room kind of shuffle and meet each other. And then you can do some sort of club after that. September, we have trivia night. So an example of how that's fun, connection and gospel. We have fun where they're getting to play trivia. The connection is they sit in smaller groups and get to know each other. And then we do announcement. And then since everybody's sitting down, we'll have someone come up and give a club talk. So any of our events at Texas State where students are sitting down for the event always ends in a club talk. If students are ever standing up for the entire event, well, then we don't do a club talk. Just because we're trying to match that energy, that funnel that gets them down. So then you have volleyball tournament. This is an idea that y'all can do. I call it medium-sized group. We do this at Texas State, but once a month, we may have small group hangouts, which we take two small groups and we put them on a date essentially together. You don't have to call it that, a small group hangout. And a guy and girl small group or two girl small groups, they go bowling together and they get to meet other people in a medium-sized group. So bingo and waffle is another example of where they're sitting down and that's fun, but then there's a gospel presentation at the end. Halloween party, all of that. So this is just examples. Coffee shop night is we serve coffee and then we maybe have a talent show. And then it ends with maybe a worship song to kind of get their feet wet with that. And then a talk at the end. Okay. Friendsgiving is a great way for small groups. This is like an idea of how small groups feed club and club feeds small groups is we have small groups cook a meal together and then they bring that to Friendsgiving together. Okay, so in order to host an intentional gathering, and we're using gathering interchangeable with club, event, whatever you want to call it, create a space where all students are welcome, pursue students, connect them with each other. So if you are going to do a traditional Young Life Club, in planning music, using radio songs, don't be afraid to use content and worship songs, right? To get them practicing and into that. In planning skits, games, mixers, think about how to engage young adults with fun and laughter and with each other. And they don't really want to be treated like children anymore, right? In planning talks, lead with the assumption that there are people in the room all over the spiritual map. And so with the gospel, we should not limit our presentation of the gospel. And what that means is a traditional club talk schedule might be, hey, we're going to do need one night, sin one night, cross one night, resurrection one night. In college, we are way less likely to make sure students are there every single week. So I would be really sad if they came and just heard the sin talk and that was their first time ever to a Christian organization on campus and they never came back. So I think it's good to have a mindset of, hey, when we do talks, how do we present the gospel each night through whatever we are speaking? So if we're talking about, hey, we welcome to college, we want to communicate what community looks like in college and how to seek friends. And this is maybe what it looks like in scripture to create community. And here is how the gospel speaks into that in freedom. So every talk is woven with the gospel so that a student could come to Young Life College once and be like, Jesus was fully communicated in his fullness, and the gospel informs everything we do. So this year, for instance, we did spring semester, we did the I am statements of Jesus. And we spoke about how that I am statement gave a further lens into the gospel. So who will give the talks? We kind of talked about this. Yeah, do your students, when do other students give a talk during this semester? Are they equipped? How are we paying attention to equipping them, not just throwing them up there? I sit and listen to every single talk right before, before they go up there the day before. Or a big thing I personally have to think about is I'm a solo staff person at my college, and I'm a female. And I really need solid equipped males to come speak at our club. So I will invite neighboring staff from a different area to come, or a high school staff to come give a club talk and say, hey, we just really need a guy up there at some point. Yeah, if your leaders don't do the talk, how do you still engage them in different ways of giving gospel proclamation? Could they give their life stories? Could they lead small group breakouts? Anything like that. And I kind of skipped ahead on this, but yeah, sorry, spoiler alert, I already talked about this. But yeah, so how do we look at series and think creatively about this? This is one of those things that's so good to ask other staff. What are you doing? Can you send me your progression? Can I see this? And then how do we engage students all over the spiritual map? How do we speak both? How do we seek to serious seekers and skeptics all in the same message? And all we have to do is have these pockets where we're looking at them and speaking to them. Like, hey, if you don't know where you are with God tonight, I'm so glad you're still here. And at Young Life, we love to have honest conversations about God. Hey, if you're really taking your life and walk with Jesus seriously, this is something I really want you to pay attention to in the passage. It's just tiny moments of leaning into each person in the room. And is it possible to bring one passage of scripture to life? And so that kind of thing of adding emphasis in different areas for each person. Everyone in the room has something for them in it. That is the beauty of trusting scripture, is that the Lord is the great communicator, and he has something for everyone, even if it's just the story of the woman at the well. He has something for the seeker, the skeptic, the serious, all of them. There is something for that in them. And our role as communicators is to come in and say, where do we see that and how can we bring that to life for them, even if we only get one time with them. So I know that was a lot, but we are going to do our breakout session now. You guys are going to go into your groups, and you guys are going to talk about, how does this change the way you view club? You may be like, way ahead of you, this is how we're already doing it, but maybe what shifted and changed in it. And then what stood out to you as particularly useful or interesting in this. So I'm excited for you guys to hear what each other do and see what comes to life in that. One of my favorite things about Young Life staff is they are the most creative people I know. So I hope this is a really good time with y'all getting to talk through this.